Hi everyone, and welcome to our live stream, IHL and Youth Education Around the World. My name is Yenisleidy, and I'm a Youth Education Program Officer for the International Humanitarian Law team at the American Red Cross. And today I have a wonderful group of speakers joining me, all of them via Skype. The first person here is Bas van Rossum, who is the chairman of the Youth Commission for the International Federation of the Red Cross Red Crescent Societies. Welcome, Bas. We also have Viktoria, who is a group leader of the IHL volunteer group in the Swedish Red Cross. Hi, Viktoria. I think I was able to put you there. We also have Lama, who is an IHL volunteer with the youth department at the Lebanese Red Cross. Hi, Lama. And finally, we have Stephanie Krauth, who is the Humanitarian Education Red Cross Red Crescent Movement Initiative volunteer for the Austrian Red Cross. And I have you there. Hi, Stephanie. And so I am really pleased to have this group of speakers today. We're going to have a really interesting conversation. We're going to begin talking about youth education in the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, how we get youth involved, why is it important that we engage young people in solving humanitarian challenges, and then we're going to move forward with a discussion more specifically in international humanitarian law. So IHL and youth programming, how it happens in different national societies, and what kind of humanitarian education tools we use to empower this generation of humanitarians. For our online audience, thank you so much for joining us. You can use our hashtag #HumanityInWar and tweet at our account #HumanityInWar with any questions, comments, experiences that you want to share today. So I'm going to get started, and first I'm going to talk to Bas. Let me see if this... Okay, so I'm going to talk to Bas first to get a sense of what is the youth engagement within the Red Cross Red Crescent movement. And so first of all, Bas, I'd like to begin by asking you, what is the Youth Commission and what purpose does it serve?
Yes, thank you so much, Yenny. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak on this exciting webinar. So I'm from the Youth Commission, together with Lama as well. She's from the Youth Commission from the Asia Pacific region, but she will be here as a Lebanese Red Cross IHL volunteer. So to come back to your question, what is the Youth Commission and what is the purpose that it serves? So the Youth Commission is the official constitutional body of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. In total, it is composed of 9 members, so 1 chair, that is myself, and then 2 representatives from each region. And Lama and myself were appointed last December during the IFRC General Assembly. So what is our main task? Which is basically to advise the International Federation, and that includes the Secretariat, but also the 190 national societies, on youth issues and youth-related issues. And when you say youth issues, that might seem quite narrow in itself, but it's actually quite broad, because you have to realize that 50% of all Red Cross Red Crescent volunteers are young people. So the interests of young people are cross-cutting. So everything that relates directly or indirectly to young people. So basically, we're advising the International Federation on a whole bunch of things. And I think it's really for us as a Youth Commission the role to empower young people by creating and sort of enabling environment for them to become change agents in their own communities, but also in their respective national societies, so that together we can build a strong organization that is capable to cope with crisis.
Thank you, Bas. If you could turn your camera on and off really quick.
Oh, yes.
Because you were frozen for a little bit, but we could hear you well, so on and off. It's coming back again.
Better?
It's loading, so we're somewhat there. So perhaps in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead with my next question, which is, and I think you touched upon it a little bit, but if you want to elaborate a bit more, why is it important that we have a youth commission, and also why it is important that we engage youth within the Red Cross Red Crescent movement?
So I think the Youth Commission is really a tool to achieve something bigger. So to come back to the second part of the question first, why is it important to have young people within the Red Cross Red Crescent? And for me, it's really the Red Cross Red Crescent is an organization that is deeply rooted in our local communities. So for me, it's very important that we are reflective of the community that we're in, because only if we can achieve that, then we can grant access as well as sort of create a sense of trust for the vulnerable groups that we serve. And I think when we speak about vulnerable groups, at least in the Netherlands where I come from, but I think in a lot of other Western European countries, we tend to focus on elderly people. And percentage-wise, that might be right because they have percentage-wise a higher likelihood of being vulnerable, probably. But I think we should not forget that we have other demographic groups as well within our societies that also experience some kind of vulnerability, which is different from elderly people, but need assistance from the Red Cross Red Crescent as well. And I think that vulnerability is then specific to their context, to their lifestyles. And for young people, that might be different from elderly people. So it's more maybe about drug abuse or human trafficking. And I think if we as a Red Cross Red Crescent want to address those challenges in a holistic and an effective manner, then we need to have volunteers who can understand them and who can relate to them. Because this sense of trust between a Red Cross Red Crescent volunteer, sort of a service provider, and a person in need is key for us to achieve sort of this humanitarian excellence.
Thank you so much, Baz.
Oh, shall I put it on and off again?
You should try do on and off again. You're still frozen, but we can hear you well, so don't worry about that.
I'm so sorry about that.
No, that's okay. We're working with technology, so.
Yeah. So it's really about sort of this creation of access and trust with young volunteers, that we have this wider access and trust under the group that we serve. And in addition to that, there are of course a lot of other organizational benefits, such as, for instance, fostering a culture of innovation, trying out new things, bringing a sense of energy in the organization, but also like ensuring just that there's a long-term continuity for the Red Cross Red Crescent. And then the Youth Commission is the body in the governance of the federation that puts strategies and policy in place to empower young people, but also empower national societies to really welcome those young volunteers and create this welcoming environment for them to really excel as an organization.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your comments, especially when you define the different vulnerable groups and how they have different needs, but also they bring on different experiences and different skill set that we as an organization can benefit from, because then that group can understand better the needs of different populations. Now, when you talk about specific youth, what are some of the most effective strategies to engage them? From your own experience, what kind of projects, initiatives, programs have you heard of that are quite effective in pulling youth in within the movement?
Oh, that's a good question, because when we talk about youth engagement, it sounds like it's a very easy thing, but I don't think it's so easy. Particularly, for instance, in the Netherlands, coming from my own background, I think youth involvement in today's world is very tough and very challenging for an organization, because young people have a lot of pressure on them these days. People expect a lot from them. So I think many young people are not allowed to make mistakes anymore, and they are expected to continuously excel and stand out from peers to really get this sort of place at the job market. And at the same time, There are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of options thrown at them where they can engage, but they have limited time and limited resources. So young people need to prioritize these days. So it's really the question for us as a Red Cross or a Crescent, how do we ensure that when they prioritize, that they prioritize our movement, or that they prioritize the general voluntary service? And for me, also reflecting on my own experience, how I joined the Netherlands Red Cross, for us it's really focused on empowering young people as individuals to make a difference on their own terms in their own communities, while respecting the Red Cross or Crescent focus and boundaries. So young people don't just want to do service delivery. They want to be part of this full project cycle. They want to do like needs assessment, but also a planning phase, the execution obviously, but also evaluation and making sure that whatever they are contributing to is sort of increasing, so it's getting better and better because they are a part of it and they can sort of adjust the program. So they really want to become owners of their own projects, and for that to happen, they need to receive a sense of trust and a sense of responsibility by their leaders or by their seniors. And when I think of a specific project that comes to mind, it's really sort of my own experience again, how I joined the Netherlands Red Cross. It's the student desks, which is sort of a platform where we try to empower young people to make a difference in their own communities. And it's very simple. So we have student branches in all major student cities. They're independent from the universities though, where we hire 6 bright young volunteers for a 1-year board membership. And they get a few things. So they get office space, they get €500 in cash as an organization, a mentor, and they can use the Red Cross Red Crescent brand. So, and then they sort of start, and then sort of the excitement happens because then they need to do everything themselves. So they do a needs assessment in their local communities and they identify what are the needs and what are the vulnerabilities, and then they come up with their own approaches to address these things within the Red Cross or Crescent sphere. And I think the fun thing, definitely for young people, is that they have to do it all themselves. So, and that really accelerates this kind of entrepreneurial spirit among them. So they do their own fundraising, they have their own volunteers, they approach their own media, etc., etc. So for them, it's really this full learning cycle, while they are contributing to making their local communities more resilient. And for us, as a Red Cross or Crescent, as a Netherlands Red Cross, it's very important because we learn a lot from those young people because they bring new approaches and they bring new ways of doing stuff. And also after that year, they often continue Red Cross or Crescent journeys. So we really see those volunteers in the organization for 5-10 years continuing.
Perfect.
So it's really about freedom to become their own owners of a project, so to say. That is key, at least for me.
Thank you so much. Really helpful response. I am going to, Bas, really quick hang up on you and try calling you back again just to see if your camera would work, and then we can move on to the next question. Let's try it just one time.
So sorry about this.
Let's see. I'll call you in a second. Let's see if we have better luck. If not, it's fine. Your picture looks good. Okay, then you're back. Yay.
Good.
Yeah.
From this side, everything is working perfectly.
Well, thank you so much. This is really helpful. I have one more question for you for now. And is, can you share some experiences related to our youth-focused work that illustrate the importance of prioritizing youth engagement? And I think you did talk a little bit about that, but if you have some specific experiences of why should we be prioritizing youth over maybe other groups in general?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think youth engagement obviously is crucial for our international movement. And why is that so important? And definitely seen from my seat, so more on a governance level, is it's really to remind our leaders and remind those decision makers on the humanitarian reality on the ground and the purpose that we serve for people affected by crisis. Because I noticed the more I got engaged in the Red Cross or Crescent governance, so more on a higher decision-making level, a little bit further away from the ground, is that people tend to be a little bit out of touch what is happening. And I don't necessarily blame for them, because they're working hard as well, and they really do trying their best. But I think it's the presence of young people that remind them of our humanitarian mission, and that they can be inspired from their voices underground, that they can guide their action. And it's really young people that should bring those voices, because it's often those young people that are underground, and it's not the people in decision-making level. So I think in general, not only for young people, but at the decision-making table, the voice of volunteers, of young people, and let alone beneficiaries, is not well heard or represented. And I think it's really the duty of young people maybe to, because they are on the front line and they know what's happening, and they know what decisions need to be taken for an organization to excel or to help people in need, to amplify those messages to the decision-making table and let the discussions at the decision-making table be guided by what's actually happening on the ground, and not this sort of political focus that it sometimes has. And I think only if we can ensure that that is happening, then we can really excel as an organization and provide the best services that we are expected to provide as well. And for young people, I see the role to amplify those messages. But at the same time also, I see a role for people that are currently on the decision-making table to invite young people and invite people that are working on the ground to tell their stories and tell their experience, and sit there as equals and learn from them, and let the actions or the decisions on the decision-making table be guided by what's happening on the ground. And this might seem very idealistic, but I think if this is idealistic, then I think we're still very far from that, because this really needs to happen, particularly as a Red Cross or Crescent, which is just the community-based organization providing support to those in need.
Thank you so much. You have done an excellent work at sort of providing the context of why it's important. Why do we have the Youth Commission? Why do we keep focusing on youth? And so now I want to move a little bit more onto the IHL component of this conversation, because youth there are so many options out there within the Red Cross movement to do good work. And so I want to talk about why we choose to focus on international humanitarian law, which it can be a difficult topic for young people to understand and to be able to raise awareness about. And so I want to move the conversation towards that topic. I want to remind our online audience that you can tweet and engage with us. We want this to be a conversation. We want you to participate. All of the speakers have agreed to stay after the official sort of questions and then answer the ones that you have. So please don't be shy and tweet using our hashtag #HumanityWar, and our handle is @HumanityWar. So we made it really easy for you to talk to us. So now I'm going to talk to Lama and Viktoria a little bit, and I want to discuss, so let me move them up there, and then Viktoria. So I have the two of you, and I want to talk to you about IHL, which I know is your passion, and I know you've been involved with it, so that's really exciting. And so first of all, I want to set up the context to begin this discussion by asking you, how did you become involved with the Red Cross and IHL more specifically? And so whichever one wants to start, you have the stage for you. Anyone?
Okay, so yeah, I can start.
Okay.
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. And well, yes, I joined the Lebanese Red Cross a very long time ago, about 16 years ago, there was a youth campaign at my school, and I said yes, why not? And I had all the energy to do it. How I was engaged in IHL specifically, first I got introduced to the IHL through a dissemination session, which is mandatory session for all the volunteers once they join, so in the first few months. And then I was deeply involved in IHL promotion, where I was when I joined the Humanitarian Principles and Values program, an essential part of it is IHL promotion. So since 2009, I think, up till now, I'm really engaged in IHL promotion, mainly through the Humanitarian Principles and Values.
Okay, so we're having a little bit of a hard time listening to you, but I'm just gonna reiterate really quick. You've been involved since 2009, and I think you've been utilizing the Humanitarian Values and Principles program. Is that somewhat? I mean, it's a really short way to say a lot of things that you explained, but I'm trying to tell the viewers, since we couldn't hear you very well. I'm not sure if there's something wrong with the audio.
If I can try without the earphones.
Oh no, actually, wait. Okay.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can. Right? Yes.
Okay. That's
okay,
good.
Perfect. So we're gonna thank you so much. We're gonna give Viktoria an opportunity to talk about how she got involved with IHL, and then hopefully the sound in every single computer will be working well. Go ahead, Viktoria.
Yes, hi. First of all, well, thanks for inviting me and us. And actually, we are having our group meeting here now for the IHL group in Malmö. So I just want to show you our volunteers.
Oh, hi, everyone.
Oh, do you see? Yes. Okay. So just to say hello. And well, I became involved with IHL when I became involved with the Red Cross. Because, as you know, IHL is the core of the Red Cross, and that's how the Red Cross started. So, and for me, that was very important. Even if we live in a peaceful country, it's very important for me to come out and talk about the Red Cross and human rights and what the Red Cross does. And of course, IHL is a big part of that. So it was more of an information. I really wanted to reach out, and this IHL group was the best way to do that.
Great, yeah, that's exciting. Before I move on to my next question, which is gonna really get into IHL programming in different national societies, I wanted to talk really quick about what we do at the American Red Cross, so that we can have more of a conversation and see maybe what are some of the things that we have in common. We at the American Red Cross have several programs to disseminate international humanitarian law, one of which is specifically for young people ages 14 to 24. It's called the IHL Action Campaign, and it provides an excellent opportunity for high school and college students to learn more about IHL. And basically the way it works is that throughout an entire academic year, youth is received training using Red Cross, which is an experiential learning tool that allows them to go through simulations and a lot of role playing to understand different humanitarian responses, humanitarian situations, and sort of they can take a role of civilians, combatants, humanitarian workers. And so throughout the duration of the training, they learn about the Geneva Conventions, they learn about violations of the Geneva Conventions, more importantly. And so after that, what the students do is they train other students, because the program is based on a peer-to-peer education model. And so once they finish the training, they train other students. They come together and prepare what we call the action campaign. And the action campaign is just an opportunity to educate their communities on IHL and other related topics. So sometimes it's been child soldiers, refugee issues, gender issues, healthcare in danger. So there's a variety of topics that they can choose from. And they come together, they put together a campaign, and it can take the form of a flash mob, a presentation in class, an art exhibit, a simulation. So the students get really creative. And so by the end of the year, they have educated thousands and thousands of their peers across the United States. So that's one way in which we engage with young people. And so after they finish their campaigns, they document all the work they did, and some of those activities that they put in place are actually transformed, edited, reviewed, and made into IHL youth activity guides that other students can take on. And it's like a one-time, very short but very effective way of getting into the world of IHL. So that's really quick in a nutshell what we do at the American Red Cross. But now I want to hear about the programming that's happening at your national societies. So if you want to share with me some of the activities, projects, or programs that we have, that you have to engage with youth, that'd be great. So either one, and so whoever is not speaking, if you can mute your mic in the meantime, that's awesome. Thank you. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay. Okay, I can go first if you prefer. Yeah. So for the Lebanese Red Cross, the dissemination of IHL goes at different levels. So there's the IHL, which is part of the dissemination session, and this session is given equally to all the volunteers within the Lebanese Red Cross. So once they join the Lebanese Red Cross, it's one of the mandatory sessions that they should attend. It's a real introduction to the Red Cross, to the movement, to the Lebanese Red Cross, and definitely, of course, it would be an introduction of Geneva Conventions and the IHL. When we go more into disseminating IHL among young people, then the youth department is mainly playing this role as part of the Humanitarian Values Program. And this program has some objectives related to rights and laws dissemination, and here where IHL part is there, and parts related to principles and values and promoting a culture of nonviolence and peace, which is really a line and a part of IHL. So we usually use more of a non-cognitive methodologies through a pool of trainers, and these trainers are really followed up, and more trainings is given to these trainers and the volunteers, and mainly most of the trainings are also given and in collaboration with the ICRC. However, when we come to promoting the IHL with the young people in the community, it's more through non-cognitive methodologies and activities. So what we mainly use is the Limito. It's a board game created by the Belgian Red Cross for children between the age of 8 and 12 years old. It's known by the slogan, "Even war has limits." And it really helps children to be more critical and have this critical look at conflicts. And it generates debate on concept of respect of human being, and it really answers questions related to IHL. And for older adolescents, we mainly focus on the Red Cross. I think it's very famous as well. It's a role-play game created by the French and the Belgian Red Cross. It's mainly designed for adolescents between the age of 13 and 18. Sometimes we also do it for older young people. the beneficiaries, they really, through experimental role play, they have to go through different stages when they really experiment the challenges of war, like being prisoners of war, humanitarian assistance, being at the artillery post as well. And at the end, it's the trial, so where we really explore more discussions about the IHL. We also use some other activities from the YABC toolkit on IHL. And there's a part of these non-cognitive tools. We also have some additional activities really created by youth for youth. So sometimes it's more a certain proposal will be presented by one branch of the volunteers who were trained on IHL, and they propose a different way of passing the message for young people. So that's mainly in general how we outreach for young people.
Thank you so much, Lama, for sharing that. Sort of draw my attention. One, that there are similarities, right? We both use Red Cross as an experiential learning tool, and we also both understand that even though we use it for youth, I've also had people, older volunteers, come to me and say, could we please use it for a training? I think it's a really good exercise regardless of age. But I also found it really interesting that you are using other methods to teach younger populations, like the board game. So that's really exciting. And the whole idea behind this live stream is also that the IHL staff around the world that it's looking for ideas and want to collaborate, have an opportunity to learn what other national societies are doing and reach out and hopefully incorporate some of those good practices into their own programmings at the local level. So very, very good examples. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to talk to Viktoria and see what programs do you have? Yes. What can we steal from you?
Yeah. Mainly what we do is that we contact high schools and secondary schools. We reach out to the teachers and offer lectures or other kinds of information. And then we go out to the schools and we have presentations. And also in this presentation, it's very important for us to use active participation. Mm-hmm. So we have different kind of practices where the students or the pupils, they have to really think in scenarios where they use the knowledge of IHL. So that's the biggest thing that we do, is that we go out in the classrooms a lot. And then we also have, we do things in the city, but that's also like flash mobs and walking tours, mm-hmm. And so on. But that's of course also for older people. But for younger people, it's easiest for us to reach them in schools and also in our local Red Cross. We do a lot of activities so that everyone that comes to the Red Cross as a volunteer should know the basics of IHL and how it works. So those are the biggest things for us.
Now I have a quick follow-up question. Are the presentations designed by the youth, and are they also delivered by youth, or is it any volunteer?
They are special IHL educated volunteers. Some of them are young, and most of them, I would say, are students, but university students. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then some are older.
Okay, thank you. And so lastly, I wanted to ask you, and something that you might be thinking, well, of course it's important, but I think it's a good reminder for everyone else. Why do you think knowledge of IHL, regardless of whether you live in a conflict zone or not, it's crucial at this point in time? And so I can remain with you and then give the opportunity to Lama to speak to that.
Okay. there are so many things that are important about that. But first of all, I think it's naive to think that we will never experience war. It may very well happen to us. And also we have a lot of people, and we need to have the understanding of IHL for them as in solidarity. And of course, it's also in Sweden. Even if you commit a war crime in another country, you can be in our national system. You can be punished for that. So it's very important to know the basics of or about IHL, even if we live in a country that is now in peace. And also, I think it's so knowledge in order so that we can uphold the laws, even for those. And also it may be that who knows. Well, yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Lama, do you want to add something to that? Why do you think it's important?
Yeah, I totally agree with Viktoria with the points that she raised, and also should not forget that now youth around the globe, they are all highly exposed to armed conflicts, if it's through directly or indirectly through media and the globalization through social media, and also the migration and the forced migration. So the topic is not far from any of us, and war has been really an everyday situation that started with the humankind, and it's not a fact that we can easily change. However, what we can do is really educate the young people, especially on IHL, which is very important for them to know that what they are exposed to or what they are experimenting is not something normal, and it shouldn't be accepted. IHL education is also about peace education. It's also about increase the sense of respect of diversity, respect of life and human dignity, and also engage and people and young people in this, and having the sense of civic engagement and responsibility, and more reaching to a more global citizenship. And viewing conflicts from a more humanitarian perspective might also be very important for young people, for them to really have more empathy towards civilians who were victims of war, and also towards refugees. And this awareness might also lead to encourage them to take actions in their communities or even through social media, and to raise the voice of the vulnerable people very high. This might also increase the pressure, if you want to say, on states and on like lawmakers to better respect IHL. So yes, it's more and more critical today and in our times to speak about the IHL and to educate our peers on IHL. Like this time with the increased and unaccepted violations against human. But at the end, we should not also forget that the youth of today, they might be the leaders of tomorrow, and we can, in promoting IHL among youth, we can really shaping the leaders of our next generation.
Thank you so much. Beautiful words. and I think a really good segue to our the next couple of questions, for which we're gonna have Stephanie join us. Hi, Stephanie. And so now we're moving a little bit onto the topic of, yes, we're trying to use IHL to educate and empower the next generation of leaders. And so I think this is a really good place to talk about the Humanitarian Education Initiative. and how it helps to do just that. But before we get into that, let's talk about how you have been involved in IHL, both from a personal sense and a professional sense as well.
So, hi all. Personally, I got interested in IHL more because I was interested about all kind of topics related to conflict, armed conflict, because my family has always, in a way, strangely been touched by war. Like most of European families by the Second World War, in my case, my family was divided between Nazism and resistance. I grew up in Colombia, and so we have been for the last 50 years as well in an armed conflict between the government and different guerrillas, or more specifically the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. And so it was difficult in a way not to wonder and get interested about like the reasons why their conflict, how people react to conflict. And so during my law studies, I got to discover IHL. So it seems like my academic ones. I first had an experience with the terrorism prevention branch in DC, and then in the IHL here. Hello?
Yeah, we are having a hard time hearing you, but just keep going and let's see how we continue.
Okay.
Okay, that's better.
I think I already answered the first question.
Okay, good. The Humanitarian Education Initiative. I know you've been very involved in it, as I think Baz has as well, and myself. And so I think it just provides an excellent opportunity to teach our children and youth based on the fundamental principles of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, but also inculcate in them this desire to not only help and care for themselves, but also for other people. And so I wanted to know your thoughts about not only the initiative, but how does IHL fit into it, and your current role within the initiative first, and then we'll talk about other things.
Okay. So I am currently, as you said, assistant helping with the Humanitarian Education Initiative. So more specifically, I am assisting the Humanitarian Education Coordinator, the Federation, the IFRC with these topics. This is a Red Cross, Red Crescent movement initiative, so all national societies are involved, or at least we hope they will be in the future. And the idea behind it is to strengthen the value-based education of national societies that they already have in their different programs. They conduct daily, and to encourage them to integrate it more. As of how IHL fits into the initiative, I think it's a really good question, and I would like to answer it in 2 times. So I think with the presentation that Lama and Viktoria did, we understood why IHL and the dissemination are important, even where we're not in war. And people need to know the rules and the law, not only during conflict, but before it happens. So when it arrives, they're prepared and aware of the importance of these rules. However, when a soldier or a combatant is in the middle of a war, of the battlefield, he is constantly, or she is constantly surrounded by death. So their lives are constantly in the line. And at that precise moment, you tend to just do whatever you feel so you can be alive. And I actually had a conversation last weekend with some military professor of IHL about this, and he said it was really important how to the way you will try to get people to learn IHL, because it cannot just be knowledge, it has to come with values. Meaning that when it's just not something you know, that rules you learn, but that is something like values you have, because at the end, humanitarian law, international humanitarian law, is about protecting your humanity part in the worst time ever, or like really we're surrounded by death. So when you are in war, and it will be more easily not to go against your values than just some rules. And so it is why, like, and I think you can see the link, it is why it's important not only just to learn, but to have the values that I has. And on the second time, the education initiative, because it goes with adults and children and everyone, to analyze events from a humanitarian perspective and to take relevant humanitarian education advocates and contribute to ensure that humanitarian perspectives are properly considered in your day-to-day life, as well as in military strategies when you are in war, and so on. And all future decision makers and opinion leaders will need the ability and competency to interpret daily life situations from a humanitarian perspective and be humanitarians who act accordingly and who care for themselves but also for others. This is how humanitarian education plays also an important role in addressing humanitarian challenges, because it's not easy to go against your values, against what you are, because the values is what you are. The values you have is what makes you you. So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm just gonna restate some of your comments because we lost you in here and there, but for the most part, I think everyone could hear you. But I think something really important that you mentioned, no, that's okay. It's technology is like that. We're doing our best. Something really important that you mentioned is that it's not only the knowledge, but it is the values-based education. With the two of them, then you can make informed decisions today, tomorrow, 20 years from now. And secondly, that perspective taken, like being able to look at a situation and interpret that situation through a humanitarian lens, that's essential, and that's at the core of what humanitarian education is trying to do. And so just to close on this topic, a more general comment on what's the role of humanitarian education in addressing humanitarian challenges in general, not only IHL, but in the broader sense. What are your thoughts?
Well, in the broader sense, just because you have humanitarian values and you're able not only to care about yourself, and then it will be easier for you to take decisions that will affect others in a positive way and not just only you. And I think when everyone is able to think a little bit more about the other and the situation the other is, you can address more easily humanitarian challenges. Just so to show a little example of this, during the migration crisis, a lot of families or people, single people, took families into their homes, families they even met or know. And for me, this is the perfect example. Like for them, like in their values, it was impossible to see your children in the street, struggling, like passing them every day. And so they invite them to their house and they help them like find a home of their own or like get work. And for me, this is what it's all about, thinking more about the others and not just yourself. And when you do that, I mean, is my belief, you have like these values. And so I think like that you can address every humanitarian challenges that will come.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And so, to close this session, I just wanted to quickly share with you, for all of you that don't know about the Humanitarian Education Initiative, it is led by the International Federation of the Red Cross, Red Crescent Societies, but it's also a worldwide movement that all national societies are a part of or should be a part of. and it's a lot of the things you've been doing for the past, I don't know how many years, and now we're just looking at it and making sense of it and implementing it on a regular basis and documenting the work we're doing. The Red Cross is not the only organization doing this, of course. There are many other humanitarian players out there that are interested in humanitarian education, and I think if we come together, form coalitions, we have a better chance of educating all the children and youth with this perspective, and then hopefully in the future we'll have those humanitarians who would make decisions based on their values and the common good. And so with that, I want to thank all the speakers for joining me today, for your thoughtful responses, for your passion and your dedication to not only IHL but also the humanitarian field. And so I'd love to they did participate, which is exciting. And very quickly before I do that, let me just remind people who are joining late that you can still tweet questions using the hashtag #HumanityInWar, and also that you can learn more about the Humanitarian Education Initiative by visiting the IFRC.org website. And so now let me, and these questions are open to anyone, any of you that wants to answer them. The first one is, are existing partnerships really delivering change on the ground? Let's be honest. Or any examples that we have of that, any stories that come to mind? And I think it depends on how you define on the ground, right? It could be the local community, it could be an actual impacted conflict zone, it could be a zone that has been affected by an emergency other than conflict. But just in general, are there any partnerships that we have really making change? It's a question. Also, I'm assuming the person who's asking is also saying, is this just, yeah, it's theory, we're being idealistic, this is what we want, but are we actually doing something where it needs to happen? Any examples out there?
Okay, just to reflect back to the question. So the question is more how the humanitarian education and IHL dissemination can really make change on the ground.
Yes. Are we doing that already? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we can't really find it directly, immediately. Like today we did this awareness campaign, or we really educated this group of people, and we can really see the changes tomorrow. But we can really see on things on a very long-term perspective, and how things have been, even if it's slightly, but it started some sort of changing human being perspective towards war, their discussion and the way they look at conflicts. It started to be more and more a humanitarian perspective. And this is where a good start is about. Maybe unfortunately, we're not really seeing that we're living in a world free from violations, but of course some changes are being taken places, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree that sometimes one of the challenges that we as educators face is the fact that you'll see the impact, you see some change in attitudes and behaviors and knowledge, but the actual impact of like saving lives, you'll see it in the long term, right? You'll see it when the people that have been part of these programs and these campaigns get to those decision maker positions, and then they make the right decisions because they learned about IHL or because they were involved in humanitarian education. And so sometimes it's easy for people to forget how valuable the work is on a day-to-day basis, but it is long-term. So I think you're right in that sense, Lama. Now, I have somebody else asking.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Can you
I
say
have.
something?
Yes, I have another question, and this one it's about how can I best reach a young audience, and I think it goes back to what Bas mentioned at the beginning, that young people have so many things. That they're involved in so many things at the same time. They have so many pressures, to call it that way. So how can we best reach them? And this goes to anybody as well. For those of you, well, all of you work with youth, so anyone should be able to.
Yes, I can't really say how it's best to reach them, but I think it's very important that that we make it relevant. That it's relevant that the young people can see the relevancy of the IHL, and I think by doing that, it's the best way to reach, and so that's why I really think it's important to have activities and like role plays and other kinds of where you really can feel that where you can engage in an IHL scenario, so that it's not just listening and to a lecture or something like that. And also, of course, to bring examples that are current from the world today, from the news and so on. Especially here in, I think in Sweden, we can bring in a lot from the news, just to emphasize the relevance of IHL.
Thank you so much. I think that's essential. It just reminded me, especially in the United States, some of the topics that we talk about might seem a little bit far away or a bit removed from the day-to-day life of an American teenager. And so one of the things we've done in the past, 1 year we talked about IHL in relation to refugee issues. And so a lot of the students went out and asked around the school and their communities how many refugees did they have. And so incorporating their stories into their campaigns and interviewing them and making them part of the panels that they hosted. And sort of that was really interesting, because then they realized, wow, my community has a large population of refugees and they have faced these challenges, and now I can understand their experiences, and now I can talk to them in a language that we can all relate to. And so I think you're absolutely right in that we need to make it relevant to the realities that the youth are facing every day. Anybody has any other comments on this question?
Yes, I would say make sure to use a language that they will understand.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that sometimes IHL, like its law, it can seem complicated, and it's important just so you find activities and ways easy to explain what it is about, so everyone can understand it, even people who are not like law students. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think those of us who use activity guides, that's the best way that we get at that. And just let them walk away from the programs and the activities that they participate in with like the main messages that you need to respect human dignity for everyone. Like those are the things that would stay with them forever, regardless. So yeah, absolutely. Make it accessible. The language has to be clear and easy for them to break down and to explain to others. And that's why I'm such a fan of the peer-to-peer education, because you train the staff or you train a couple of students, but then they go and they make that content their own, and they go out there and explain to other students in a way that makes so much sense to them. So that's great. I have another question, somewhat related, and is somebody's asking, how can social media or internet resources help youth around the world to get connected, either for to learn about humanitarian education, to get involved in humanitarian education, but also in IHL? And so, any experiences? What's the role of social media in this whole process? I have you on camera as Stephanie, but you don't have to be the one to answer this. Anybody can.
Okay, I could just, I don't know if it's going to be an answer as a whole, but I think social media can be a really important tool, because first of all, like, young people today use this way to communicate, to get information. And also, I think it's good just to be able to be on the shoes of someone else. And through social media, you can actually connect with people who are really far away from you, like we're doing right now. And just by hearing the stories, you can understand better the position, and so you will be more conscious of someone else who has a similar position. I'm thinking again, I always do, about a film that they did to explain the situation in Syria, like how war just arrived one day to another. And it was a video who went viral on social media. It was, I think, from UK, Save the Children. And I think it was a perfect way just so to communicate. And it went viral on social media, and a lot of people were able to understand, like, the situation of a lot of children in Syria just through that video. So I think, yeah.
Good.
I think it's really important.
Good. Any other examples that anybody has?
Well, I think as the Red Cross or Crescent, we really should see social media as a powerful tool, because if we talk about IHL and we have a more technical focus, then we also narrow down the people that we sort of interest. And I think by social media, people can choose to engage or not. So we can really target our message to those who are really interested in it. As well as I think it could be a tool, as already highlighted before, to engage in a sort of dialogue. Because I think several people already mentioned, for instance, as well, in the Netherlands, we have peacetime, so IHL might not seem necessarily relevant for now, but I think it could be very interesting that through social media or other forms, you can sort of use it as a platform to compare situations as well. So to start a dialogue with, for instance, people currently in Syria, and compare the two different things, and let Dutch students, for instance, or Dutch people that are interested in IHL engage in a dialogue with Syrian people, and that way they can better understand the context from a very personal touch, so to say, because they're actually communicating with human beings. So I think it's a powerful tool that we should embrace very much.
Thank you so much. I did get one more question about, and I think you have somewhat answered this question already, but they want to know, how can youth utilize a humanitarian perspective, including IHL knowledge, on a day-to-day, like at a school, with my family? If I'm very far removed from what's happening out there in the world, which you shouldn't be, but if you are, like, what is the actual practical examples of how can I use this knowledge in my day-to-day, both humanitarian education in general and IHL in particular? Have you heard any stories working with youth? Because I have some, but I don't want to share them yet. I want to give you an opportunity to do that if you have any that come to mind. Any stories?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
I think humanitarian education and IHL is, as I said previously, is not just about how to react during time of conflict, but it's more about humanitarian education and how to live our life humanly, and how to respect diversity, how to put ourselves on the other shoes. And this is what our everyday life situation stories and scenarios we might be facing. So IHL education and humanitarian education in general are more about thinking critically and thinking about the suffering that any action might be causing, whether it is too big or it is a little more small, but to put really ourselves on the other shoes and try to make the best decision. And it's also about decision making and negotiation skills and how to put these skills into practice in order for the sake of humanity and the human being.
Absolutely. I have a specific story from the program that I run here at the American Red Cross, and it's students. Well, it's not actually. It's a lot of different stories from the students, because when they participate in these programs, they're not only learning IHL, the knowledge, but also it's a really good skill set to have, to be able to problem solve, to be able to work in groups, to be able to present to a class, their action campaigns, for instance, like it's the speaking up, the actually recruiting other students. So they start building a lot of skills that they otherwise don't get in class. I have students talking about how they were really shy at the beginning, and now they're able to just talk to 100 other students about IHL, or about the protection of refugees, or the protection of children in armed conflict. Or I also had a story of a student who was in high school, but her entire family had attended one of the presentations, and now her little brother was wanting to do some kind of work, and he was in middle school, and we didn't have any programming ready yet, but it's sort of that inspiration component, right? It's that you're bringing the entire family. So I think it's relevant for those who are in armed conflict. We talked about that. It's relevant for other contexts as well. And it's an opportunity for students to teach their parents and their family members something new that they haven't heard of, and sort of change their mindsets around topics that are really difficult sometimes to address. So I see a lot of really good things coming out of participating in these programs. I don't have any more questions for now, but I'm sure if I get any other specific questions for one of the speakers, I'm happy to pass those questions along. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. And so before I go, I also wanted to say, because somebody was asking about internet resources, that the Humanitarian Education Initiative has an online platform that it's an opportunity for educators and people interested in this kind of work. They can go and log in and share information, and so that's still in the works a little bit, but it's also an excellent resource that you'll be able to use really soon. And for more information, as I said, you can go to ifrc.org. And so I wanted to really thank Baz and Lama and Viktoria and Stephanie for joining me today, and for being able to overcome all the technological issues that came up. I think it's part of trying to connect with people who are far away geographically from us. But thank you so much for your inputs, for your work, for believing in IHL and in the humanitarian values that we stand for. And so with that, thank you to the online audience for your questions, your participation, and for joining the Humanity in War live stream series. And we'll hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon or night, wherever you are. Thank you.